Hello folks, I'm Dean with Dean's Woodworking. Y'all come on in the shop and make yourself comfortable. Tonight we're going to show you how to put a tenon or a recess on what would be a bowl blank. You see, on my last shop update, I asked everyone if there's something you would like to see, please let me know. And thank you, Cindy Kiyoshi. And I hope I said your name right, Cindy. She replied back in comments and said she would really like to see how you put a tenon versus a recess on a bowl blank. I've given this quite a bit of thought, and I could probably do 2 days of video just on all of the things that you could do or should do, or the different chucks, the different jaws and everything. But we're going to try to keep this fairly simple and keep it fairly quick. And I just want to show Cindy, and I'm sure there's a lot of others out there, new turners, that don't really understand the difference between a tenon and a recess and when to use them. So we're going to go ahead and start turning. And I've got a couple of 2x6s here, so not real bowl blanks, but they will work for what we're going to show tonight. We're going to put a tenon on one and a recess on the other. I will hollow both of them out so they have some semblance of being a bowl, and then we're going to cut them in half and look at them. Okay, so stay tuned, and we'll talk about the differences in jaws and things after we get them cut apart and see how they fit. Okay, let's get going. So one of the things that I like to do, and that is to mark my tenons and my recesses where I'm going to cut them with a set of dividers. So we'll start this off slow, as I always recommend doing. We'll speed it up a little bit. And when you're doing this, always make sure that the point nearest you is the one that touches the wood, and do not let that far point touch the wood. If you do, it's just going to toss it right back up at your face. At the very least, it's going to destroy your dividers. At the worst, it can be very dangerous for you. So we're going to go ahead and touch that. And we got pretty lucky because we're lined up pretty well right there. We'll go ahead and continue with that. This one's going to be the tenon. So what I'm normally going to do is I'm going to come in with a bowl gouge, and I'm just going to take a little bit of a cut right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and shape this real quick, and we'll finish that tenon up. But we know now where it goes. Okay, once I have it shaped, then I'm just going to come in with my bowl gouge, and I'm going to do a cut straight in. Again, tenons don't have to be that deep. I like somewhere between 3/16 and 1/4 of an inch deep for most of mine. I absolutely do not want them to bottom out in the chuck. On a larger bowl, I may go as much as 3/8, but you'll rarely see me make a tenon more than about 3/8 of an inch, and that'll be on a, like I said, a bigger bowl. Once I've got that done, I'm going to take a skew, and I'll usually just come in, and I'm going to angle that just a little bit. Hopefully you guys, let me show you exactly what I'm doing. I'm just going to angle in just a little bit. And what I want is I want a good square corner right here. And I want just a little bit of a dovetail there. All right. Let's do that one more time just so you kind of see exactly what I'm doing. It's just that simple. We'll grab a different jaw, a different size here. But what I'm looking for when it is flush up against the front is it running the same angle as that dovetail jaw. Okay, this, like I said, this is a bigger jaw, but that will give you an idea, and we'll talk about that more in a minute. So that is exactly how I shape my tenons. Now let's go ahead and take this one off. And by the way, I just have these on the chuck with a woodworm screw. Almost every chuck comes with one of those. And if you don't use it, I highly suggest that you look into using it because it can be a very versatile tool. Okay, we'll go ahead and put this other blank on here, and on this one we'll do a recess. And folks, just remember, this is the way I do it. If you get 50 turners in a room, you'll get 75 different ideas on what is the perfect way to do this. But this is the way I do it. So we're going to bring this back up to speed. I'm going to take the dividers, come in. Again, I'm going to make my mark, making sure that the point nearest me is the only one that touches the wood. Again, I'm going to take my trusty bowl gouge, but this time instead of cutting out, I'm going to cut in. You don't have to go real deep with this. Again, my suggestion is going to be somewhere between 1/8, no more than 1/4 of an inch deep. In fact, that one's pretty deep, really. Okay, once we've got that done, then we're going to take our skew chisel, just like I did a while ago. I'm just going to go straight in. That's going to put a little bit of a dovetail in there. Now, just like I did on the other one, I'm going to go ahead and shape a bowl out of this real quick. We're going to hollow it out, and then I'm going to go over on the bandsaw and we're going to cut it apart so we can see exactly what these look like. Okay, folks, we're not going to bother sanding these or anything, and we do have a little bit of chip out on this soft pine, but the whole thing here is not to create a bowl, it's to kind of show you folks exactly what we're doing with a tenon and a recess. Okay, so when you're doing a recess on one like this, you want to snug it up. You don't want to necessarily make it super tight, and what I prefer to do is have it so that I don't want the grain running with the separation in the chuck. Basically, I want the grain running across that. Why? Because now you're getting even expansion and you're getting the same push off of everything. See, if you look at your end grain this way, you're not going to get much expansion, or it's not going to compress. Your side grain here will compress. So if you're pushing side to side, you're going to get some compression here. You're not here, it's not going to give you as good a fit. If your grain is running, let me see if you guys can see this right here. This is our center. Grain's running this way. We're going to match it up in the center of one of these jaws, and that way we get a little more even pressure all the way around. And like I said, don't tighten it too tight because you absolutely can split out the wood here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and try to do a real quick job of hollowing. Not a bowl turning video. Let's just check our thickness here real quick. Okay, so we're fairly even all the way. It's probably a little thicker than I would normally turn one. However, more than thickness, we want to make sure we have even thickness. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with this one. One more time, we'll just go ahead and check our thickness real quick. Close, not bad. So we're going to take this off the chuck for just a moment. And hey, you folks, come on, go with me. We're going to go over here to the bandsaw. Well, folks, it looks like we missed the bandsaw footage. Wrong click of a mouse there. However, we do have the bowls cut in half, so let's look at the results. This is the bowl with the tenon on it. So I want you to look at something. Again, we weren't going or aiming to have a thin bowl, so I left them both a little bit thick. But I want you to see how even it is pretty much start to finish. The other thing I want you to see, and hopefully you can, see if I can get that just a little bit closer. See how the chuck jaw fits right there up against the tenon? You want the face of that jaw to ride against the bowl. You never want the bottom of your tenon to hit the back of this jaw, okay? Everything needs to be supported off of the face of the jaw. Okay, so let's take a look at the recess. Now here's one of the things I want you to notice. See how the thickness here and the thickness here are pretty close? But look what happens right here. Quite a bit thicker. Now, if you want to leave this tenon in here, then you can go on down a little bit further, but then you've got to be careful you get a flat bottom bowl. Some people may not mind that. I don't necessarily like a flat bottom bowl. I want it to continue to curve all the way through. But let's look at the fit on this. Just like on the tenon, we want that dovetail to fit right in there. And if you're getting that kind of fit, you know you're doing it right. When would we use a recess? And when would we use a tenon? Again, folks, if you put 50 wood turners in a room and you ask them all that question, you're probably going to get 150 different answers that time. Let me tell you what I do. On most of my bowls, I use a tenon. On almost all of my platters, I use a recess. Now why? Okay, on a bowl, I'm going to typically have a smaller footprint. I typically want my bowls to have a foot somewhere between 30 and 40% of the size of the bowl. So a 10-inch bowl is going to have between a 3 and a 4-inch foot. And I'll show you some examples of that in just a minute. My platters, on the other hand, a 10-inch platter is going to have somewhere between a 6 and a 7-inch foot. Okay, so are you starting to see where I'm going? Not too many people have 7 or 8-inch chuck jaws, but if you're expanding into that recess, you can get that larger footprint and it just works out better in a platter. When would I suggest that you never use a recess? Well, if you've got cracked wood, don't do it. If you've got something that's got a whole lot of voids in it or bark inclusions, do a tenon. If you're a new turner, do a tenon. Now why do I say if you're a new turner, do a tenon instead of a recess? You can see, looking at the outside of this bowl, where your chuck jaws are. That's going to help you tremendously when it comes to knowing where to stop hollowing out. If you're on a recess, depending how deep you made your recess, you can't see where it's at. Sometimes it comes up on you as a surprise and the inside gets bigger than the outside, and that's never a good thing. My recommendation to a new turner is use a tenon. Get used to turning. I hear so many new turners tell me, well, I tried to turn 3 bowls or 4 bowls or 5 bowls and I went through the bottom of all of them. Well, when you start asking questions, every time I've had somebody tell me that, they've been using a recess instead of a tenon. It just gives you a little bit more room. Now, how do you size your tenon? Let's take a look at that. I'm going to size that tenon so I have about 1/8 of an inch gap between my jaws when it's tight. Why? Because I know that's about as close to an actual circle as I'm going to get. If I make it bigger, then I start to grip on these outer corners. If I make it too small, I can't grip enough. I've got about the same thing when I do a recess. Why? Because again, that's as close to a full circle as I'm going to get contact all the way around this. If I make the recess too big and I have to expand this, what I end up doing is just catching this portion right here, and I don't get the full length of the jaw that is catching inside my recess. So again, if you will set that to where you're approximately 1/8 of an inch apart and you size your tenon for that, you can't go wrong. You will do well. Let me show you some quick examples. This is a roughed out bowl. It's 9 1/4 inches wide or across, and I've got a 4 1/2 inch tenon on it. When I finish turn that, I won't actually take the foot away. Probably I can, but normally I'll make this tenon a part of the foot. And let me show you exactly what I do when I'm talking about that. Here's a classic example. This one has a smaller, or had a smaller tenon on it, and basically I just came in and rounded that in. Now the tenon may have actually been a lot bigger than what the foot is, but I decided I wanted a smaller foot. If you look at that, what happens is it will raise it up off the table just a little bit and give you a little bit of a shadow line, and I really like that look. You may like it, you may not. An example of an early bowl I did that I used a recess on. So let me explain one thing real quick. There is no hard fast rule that you have to use a recess here, you have to use a tenon there. Work with them both, get comfortable using them, and it just makes your turning that much more versatile. And as you work with turning, as you gain experience, you'll make the decision of when you want to do one or the other. You can tell that's a pretty thick bowl. I think that's probably maybe 3/8, maybe even a little thicker than 3/8, and just about everything I turn now will be a 1/4 or less. Now here is a bowl that I took the tenon completely off of and just made it a little bit of a concave in there. So again, you want it to set flat. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's just a little bit of a step there. You see if you guys can see that right there. A little bit of step, so it lifts that bowl off the table just a little bit and gives it that recess or that shadow line. Hopefully that'll show you guys. See, it raises it up just a little. Cindy, I sincerely hope this helps you out. And for you other folks out there that are watching, I really hope you benefit from it as well. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for watching. If you like what you're seeing, go down and click the subscribe button and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. But most of all, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and happy turning.